Zareth's observation pod drifted silently through the debris field at the edge of Earth's solar system, its adaptive camouflage reflecting the cold light of distant stars. After 3 cycles of studying humanity, the xenanthropologist had learned to appreciate the value of patience. The humans below had no idea they were being watched, and that was exactly how the consolidated worlds wanted it. The pod's sensors captured another launch from the Mars colony, the 4th this week. Zareth watched as the ungainly vessel lumbered into space, its fusion drives pulsing with what the consolidated worlds considered primitive efficiency. But there was something about these human ships that bothered the observer, something that the Supreme Council refused to acknowledge. The vessel's hull was a patchwork of repairs and modifications, like most human spacecraft. Where consolidated world ships were seamless marvels of engineering, human vessels looked like they had been assembled from spare parts, because they often were. Yet they kept flying, kept pushing further into space, defying all logical predictions of failure. Zareth's neural interface pulsed with an incoming priority message. The Supreme Council had reached a decision. After months of debate, they had determined that humanity's expansion into space posed an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. The quarantine would begin within the next solar rotation. Request to address the Council. Zareth transmitted, appendages trembling with uncharacteristic emotion. The response was immediate, a rare occurrence that spoke to the gravity of the situation. The Council chamber materialized in Zareth's neural feed. 12 beings of various species floated in their gravity wells, their forms ranging from crystalline structures to clouds of intelligent gas. They had ruled the known galaxy for 10,000 years, maintaining peace through technological superiority and careful control of developing species. Speak, Observer Zareth. The Prime Counselor's thoughts echoed through the neural space. Honored Council, I must warn you. Humanity is not like the other species we have quarantined. Their approach to space travel, while primitive, demonstrates a fundamental difference in thinking that we may have underestimated. The Council stirred, ripples of dismissal flowing through the neural space. They use fusion drives when quantum propulsion is clearly superior, one member transmitted. Their ships require constant maintenance, another added. They have barely established colonies on their neighboring planets. Yes, Zareth persisted, but have you considered why their ships require so much maintenance? It's not because they can't build better vessels. It's because they build them to be repairable. When our ships encounter a problem, they shut down to prevent damage. Human ships keep functioning, even when damaged. They call it graceful degradation. The Council's dismissal turned to curiosity. The Prime Counselor's crystalline form shifted, refracting light in patterns of interest. Explain. Zareth transmitted sensor data from the Mars vessel. Watch how the ship's systems are arranged. Each critical component has multiple backups, not just 1 or 2 like our vessels. But more importantly, when systems fail, they fail in predictable ways that can be worked around. The humans plan for failure, expect it, and design their technology to adapt to it. A primitive approach, one council member scoffed. True advancement comes from preventing failure altogether. With respect, Zareth countered. I believe this represents a fundamentally different philosophy of technology. Our ships are perfect until they're not. Human ships are never perfect, but they're always adaptable. In the 3 cycles I've observed them, I've never seen a human vessel become completely disabled. They limp, they struggle, but they keep moving. The council chamber filled with patterns of concern and dismissal. The Prime Counselor's voice cut through the chaos. Your observation is noted, Observer Zareth, but the decision stands. Humanity's expansion will be contained. Their philosophical approach to technology, while interesting, does not change the fact that they represent a destabilizing force in the galaxy. Zareth made one final attempt. They will resist. They will fail, the Prime Counselor responded. Our ships are 1,000 years more advanced than theirs. Their resistance will be brief and instructive. The neural feed dissolved, leaving Zar-Ith alone in the observation pod. Below, the Mars vessel continued its journey, its patchwork hull gleaming in the sunlight. Another ship was launching from Earth, its course plot indicating it was headed for the asteroid belt. Humans, always pushing outward, always adapting. Zar-Ith began recording a new observation log. The Council has made a critical error in their assessment of human technology. They see imperfection as weakness, but humans have turned imperfection into a strength. They do not build their ships to be invincible. They build them to survive. The Council believes their superior technology will guarantee victory, but they don't understand. The observer paused, watching as the Mars ship executed a complex maneuver to avoid a piece of debris, its systems compensating smoothly for a minor power fluctuation that would have caused a consolidated world's vessel to initiate emergency protocols. They don't understand that humans don't need perfect ships to be dangerous. They have spent their entire history adapting to failure, learning from it, overcoming it. The Council thinks they are containing a primitive species, but they are about to challenge something they have never faced before, a civilization that expects things to go wrong and has learned to thrive anyway. In the distance, the first consolidated world's enforcement fleet emerged from quantum space, their perfect ships gleaming with unused potential. Zar-Ith felt a strange emotion, something like anticipation mixed with dread. The humans would soon detect the fleet's presence, and then the Council would learn why perfection wasn't always an advantage, and why the ability to adapt to failure was sometimes the greatest strength of all. The consolidated world's fleet emerged from quantum space in perfect formation, their ships arranging themselves in a precise geometric pattern that would have impressed any spacefaring civilization, except that humans weren't impressed by precision. They were too busy being curious about why the alien ship's quantum wake signatures were so predictable. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the holographic display aboard the Earth Defense Force flagship Endurance, her expression thoughtful as data streamed across multiple screens. The alien fleet had appeared exactly where their analysts had predicted, based on subtle gravitational disturbances detected weeks ago. The consolidated worlds didn't realize that their perfect quantum jumps created ripples that human scientists had learned to track. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," her communications officer reported. "Universal Translation Matrix is processing. It's a demand for our immediate cessation of all space travel beyond Mars orbit." Chen smiled slightly. "Send them our prepared response." The response was simple, a request for clarification, followed by telemetry data from 36 human ships that were already well beyond Mars, scattered throughout the asteroid belt, and as far as Jupiter's moons. Ships that the consolidated world's sensors hadn't detected because they weren't looking for vessels operating at anything less than peak efficiency. The alien fleet's reaction was immediate. Their perfect formation shifted, attempting to adapt to this unexpected development. But adapting wasn't something their ships did well. Each course correction required full computational consensus among their linked AI systems. Each movement had to be calculated to maintain optimal efficiency. "They're launching smaller vessels," the tactical officer announced. "Appear to be interceptors, heading toward the Johnston at the asteroid belt mining station." The Johnston was an old ice hauler converted to a mining support vessel. By consolidated world standards, it was barely spaceworthy. Its reactor operated at 82% efficiency, its hull was patched in 17 places, and its navigation computer was 3 generations out of date. It was also crewed by humans who had spent their entire lives adapting to equipment that never worked quite right. Chen opened a channel to the Johnston. "Captain Rivera, you have visitors incoming. Standard Protocol 4. "Understood, Admiral." Rivera's voice crackled through with static. They never had fixed the communications array properly. "Time to show them how we dance out here in the belt." The consolidated world's interceptors approached the Johnston with overwhelming force, their weapons charged and their shields operating at perfect capacity. Their commanders transmitted demands for immediate surrender, confident in their superior technology. The Johnston's response was to vent its water tanks, creating an expanding cloud of ice crystals that the alien sensors automatically tried to analyze in perfect detail, overwhelming their processing systems with unnecessary data. By the time they adjusted their sensors, the Johnston had used the ice cloud's minimal thrust to alter its course while simultaneously releasing a cluster of mining drones that its crew had modified for this exact scenario. The alien interceptors found their perfect targeting systems confused by dozens of small, erratically moving objects, none of which exactly matched the Johnston's signature, because the humans had learned long ago that being unpredictable was better than being perfect. In the chaos that followed, the Johnston demonstrated why human ships were different. When the aliens finally landed a hit on its starboard section, emergency bulkheads sealed automatically, not to prevent all damage, but to control and direct it. When its main reactor was forced to shut down, secondary and tertiary power systems activated seamlessly, because humans always assumed something would go wrong and planned accordingly. The alien commanders watched in confusion as their target refused to behave like a damaged vessel should. Instead of shutting down to preserve optimal conditions, the Johnston continued to operate, its efficiency dropping but its effectiveness remaining largely unchanged. Their sensors reported multiple system failures aboard the human vessel, yet it continued to maneuver, continued to fight back. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with satisfaction as the Johnston led the alien interceptors on a wild chase through the asteroid belt, its jury-rigged systems and experienced crew turning what should have been disadvantages into advantages. The consolidated world's ships were more powerful, more advanced, and theoretically better in every way, except they weren't built to handle the unexpected. "Send word to all Earth forces," Chen ordered. "Operation Broken Mirror is in effect. Let's show our visitors why trying to enforce perfection on humans is a bad idea." Across the solar system, human ships began to move. They weren't the fastest, weren't the most advanced, and weren't even the most powerful. But they were adaptable, unpredictable, and crewed by people who had never expected anything to work perfectly in the first place. The consolidated worlds were about to learn that their perfect ships had a critical flaw. They had never been designed to handle imperfection. And humans had made an art form out of turning imperfection into advantage. As the Johnston continued its seemingly chaotic dance through the asteroid belt, its alien pursuers failed to notice that they were being drawn into carefully planned killing zones, where other human ships waited with improvised weapons and tactics that no self-respecting advanced civilization would ever think to use. Because sometimes, the most effective approach wasn't the most elegant one. The battle for humanity's right to expand had begun, and it would be fought not with perfect ships, but with the kind of adaptability that only comes from embracing imperfection. Zar-Eth stood in the consolidated world's flagship's observation chamber, watching the aftermath of what the humans had dubbed the Belt Skirmish. The perfect formations of the alien fleet had been disrupted, their carefully planned blockades scattered by hit-and-run attacks from vessels that by all logical measures should have been easy to defeat. "You tried to warn us," Supreme Commander Valnar admitted, their crystalline form pulsing with colors of frustration and confusion. "But I still don't understand. Our ships are superior in every measurable way. Their technology is crude, their methods chaotic, yet they persist. Perhaps," Zar-Eth suggested, "we should look at how they build their ships. Not just the technology, but the philosophy behind it." The xenanthropologist interfaced with the ship's systems, projecting a holographic comparison between a consolidated world's vessel and a captured human ship schematic. "Observe the differences. Our ships are marvels of engineering. Every system is optimized for maximum efficiency. When a component approaches less than optimal performance, it shuts down to prevent cascade failures. We call this perfect design." The hologram shifted to show the human vessel's internal systems. "Now look at their approach. Multiple redundant systems. Yes, but not identical ones. Each backup uses different technology, different operating principles. When one system fails, The backups don't just take over, they adapt to the new situation. In the distance, a human mining vessel demonstrated this principle as it limped away from a confrontation, its main drive offline but secondary systems working in concert to maintain acceleration. The Consolidated World's ships pursuing it couldn't lock weapons effectively because the human vessel's erratic power signature didn't match any of their targeting parameters. Their ships don't just survive damage, Zareth continued. They're designed to operate in damaged states. Every system can work independently if needed. Their crews train for system failures as much as they train for normal operations. Valnar's crystalline form shifted in patterns of disbelief. But that's incredibly inefficient. The power requirements alone are higher, yes, Zareth interrupted. Their ships use more fuel, require more maintenance, and never achieve optimal performance. But they also never completely fail. Watch. The hologram displayed footage from the recent battles. Consolidated World ships, their perfect systems disrupted by unexpected tactics, shutting down to prevent damage. Human vessels, carrying on with multiple systems damaged or offline, their crews adapting to each new limitation with practiced ease. We build our ships to achieve perfection, Zareth explained. They build theirs to survive imperfection. And that's the fundamental difference we fail to understand. Humans don't see technology as a path to perfection. They see it as a tool for survival. In Engineering Bay 7 of the Endurance, Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez was demonstrating this philosophy in action. Her team had jury-rigged a quantum wake detector from salvaged alien technology and their own sensor arrays. It wasn't elegant, wasn't perfect, but it worked. The aliens think their quantum drives are undetectable, she explained to Admiral Chen, who had come to inspect the modification. Because according to their perfect calculations, the wake signature dissipates too quickly to track. But they never considered that you could track it if you didn't mind getting slightly inaccurate readings. Chen studied the makeshift detector. How accurate is it? About 70%, Rodriguez admitted. But that's enough to give us a general direction. And when you combine data from multiple ships running similar setups, she gestured to a larger display showing a web of quantum wake traces. We can triangulate their fleet movements before they emerge. They'll adapt eventually, Chen noted. Rodriguez grinned. Sure, but their adaptation will be perfect. They'll develop a completely undetectable quantum drive. Meanwhile, we'll have come up with 6 more imperfect but effective ways to track them. This was the lesson the Consolidated Worlds were struggling to learn. Their pursuit of perfection had become their greatest weakness. They couldn't comprehend how humans could function with systems operating below optimal capacity, couldn't understand why humans seemed to prefer adaptable systems over perfect ones. Back on the Consolidated World's flagship, Valnar was beginning to grasp the implications. Their entire approach to space travel, it's based on the assumption that things will go wrong. Yes, Zareth confirmed. And that's why they're so dangerous. We've spent thousands of years learning how to prevent failure. They've spent their entire history learning how to survive it. The Supreme Commander watched as another human vessel escaped their pursuit, its systems operating at what their sensors indicated was barely 40% capacity. How do we fight an enemy that treats disaster as an opportunity? Zareth's response was interrupted by new alarms. Across the solar system, human ships were moving in patterns that made no tactical sense, until you realized they weren't trying to win by being better. They were winning by being unpredictable, by turning their limitations into advantages. The battle for the solar system was about to enter a new phase, and the Consolidated Worlds were beginning to realize that their perfect ships might not be enough to stop an enemy that had mastered the art of imperfection. Saturn's largest moon cast long shadows across the assembled human fleet. Titan's thick atmosphere and complex magnetic field created the perfect backdrop for what Admiral Chen knew would be the decisive battle. The Consolidated World's perfect sensors would struggle here, among the hydrocarbon rains and electromagnetic disturbances. It was exactly the kind of messy, unpredictable environment where human ships excelled. All ships, final positions. Chen broadcast from the Endurance. Remember your training. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be ourselves. The human fleet was a motley assembly that would have made any consolidated world's commander cringe. Mining ships retrofitted with weapons salvaged from earlier skirmishes. Research vessels whose sensitive atmospheric sensors had been repurposed into targeting systems. Even civilian cargo haulers, their holds converted into drone bays. The consolidated world's fleet emerged from quantum space exactly where Rodriguez's jerry-rigged detection network had predicted. 100 ships of gleaming perfection, their formations mathematically precise, their weapons charged to optimal capacity. Supreme Commander Valnar's voice echoed across all frequencies. This is your final opportunity to accept quarantine. Your resistance, while admirable, is futile. Our technological superiority is absolute. Chen's response was to order the release of what her engineers had dubbed chaos drones. Thousands of small, autonomous units cobbled together from mining equipment and spare parts. Each drone operated on different frequencies, used different propulsion systems, and followed randomized patterns that overwhelmed the aliens' perfect targeting systems. The battle began not with a grand exchange of weapons, but with confusion. The consolidated world's fleet's linked AI systems struggled to process the chaos before them. Their perfect formation began to break as individual ships attempted to adapt to the thousands of potential threats their sensors detected. Now, Chen ordered, show them what humanity does best. Human ships burst from hiding places in Titan's atmosphere, their systems already operating in degraded states that the aliens' targeting computers couldn't properly track. They didn't try to match the aliens' perfect formation or sophisticated tactics. Instead, each ship fought independently, adapting to the changing situation in ways that no linked battle network could predict. The Johnston, still bearing scars from the Belt skirmish, led a group of mining ships in an attack that looked like a retreat until the aliens realized the humans had been dropping modified mining charges in their wake. The resulting explosions weren't powerful enough to destroy the alien ships, but they were messy enough to force their perfect systems into emergency shutdown protocols. Their ships are failing, Zar-Eth reported from the consolidated world's flagship, watching as one perfect vessel after another shut down to prevent system damage. They can't maintain optimal performance in these conditions. Valnar's crystalline form pulsed with patterns of frustration. Order all ships to reset and restore optimal settings. That will take 6.3 minutes, Zar-Eth warned. Time the humans won't waste. They watched as human vessels, operating at what the aliens considered dangerously low efficiency levels, continued to fight effectively. A research ship with a cracked hull and failing life support systems managed to disable 3 alien vessels by dispersing a cloud of magnetized particles that played havoc with their sensitive quantum field generators. The Endurance itself took a direct hit from an alien capital ship, losing 30% of its power generation capacity. Instead of withdrawing for repairs, the crew rerouted systems in ways that violated every principle of optimal engineering, but kept them in the fight. Chen watched as her engineers adapted to each new failure, finding ways to turn limitations into tactical advantages. They don't understand, Rodriguez commented from her engineering station, hands dancing across controls as she balanced power loads that should have been impossible to maintain. Every time they hit us, we learn something new. Every system failure teaches us another way to adapt. The battle space around Titan became a chaos of disabled alien ships and human vessels that refused to behave according to any rational combat doctrine. The consolidated world's perfect tactics fell apart in the face of an enemy that treated combat damage as an opportunity to try something new. Valnar watched in mounting horror as their fleet's coordination disintegrated. Ships designed to fight at peak efficiency couldn't handle enemies that grew more dangerous the more systems they lost. The humans weren't just surviving damage. They were using it, learning from it, adapting to it in real time. How? The Supreme Commander demanded. How do they keep fighting? Zareth's response was interrupted by a new development. The human ships were moving into a new formation, if it could be called that. Each vessel, operating at different levels of damage and efficiency, had found its own unique way to contribute to the battle. They weren't fighting as a perfect unit, but as a collection of individuals all solving the same problem in different ways. Because, Zareth realized, watching as the battle turned decisively in humanity's favor, they never expected anything to work perfectly in the first place. Their strength isn't in preventing failure. It's in making failure work for them. The Battle of Titan would be remembered not as a triumph of superior technology, but as the day the consolidated worlds learned that perfection wasn't always an advantage. Sometimes, the ability to thrive in imperfection was the greatest strength of all. In the aftermath of the Battle of Titan, Zareth stood in the observation deck of the Endurance, watching as human repair crews worked on both their own vessels and the disabled consolidated world ships. The scene before them defied everything the xenanthropologist had been taught about technological advancement. Humans in patched environment suits moved between ships with practiced efficiency, their improvised tools and techniques, somehow managing to restore function to systems their civilization shouldn't have been able to understand. They're adapting our technology, Valnar observed, their crystalline form showing patterns of both concern and fascination. The Supreme Commander had accepted Admiral Chen's invitation to observe the recovery efforts, though the concept of a victor assisting the defeated was foreign to Consolidated Worlds doctrine. But they're not simply copying it. They're changing it, making it more human, Chen replied, joining them at the viewport. Your quantum drives are impressive, but they're too dependent on perfect conditions. We're finding ways to make them work even when conditions aren't ideal. Through the viewport, they could see the Johnston, now serving as a mobile repair platform. Its crew had already figured out how to restart 3 Consolidated Worlds vessels by bypassing their shutdown protocols, something the aliens had considered impossible and potentially catastrophic. But the efficiency loss, Valnar protested. You're reducing the performance by at least 30%. Yes, Rodriguez confirmed, entering the observation deck with diagnostic readings. But we're gaining something more valuable than peak efficiency. We're gaining reliability under adverse conditions. Your ships are amazing when everything works perfectly. We're making them amazing even when things go wrong. Zareth watched as human engineers installed backup systems in a Consolidated Worlds cruiser, their modifications allowing it to operate even with significant damage. The ship would never achieve its original perfect specifications, but it would never be completely disabled either. I think I understand now, Zareth said. We've been pursuing the wrong kind of advancement. We thought progress meant eliminating failure, but you've shown us that true progress means learning to work with failure. Chen nodded. Humanity's greatest achievements didn't come from creating perfect systems. They came from learning how to work with imperfect ones. Space travel, medicine, communication. We advanced not by eliminating problems, but by finding ways to work around them. Outside, a human mining ship demonstrated this philosophy in action. Its crew had adapted Consolidated Worlds shielding technology to work with their crude fusion drives. The resulting hybrid system wasn't as powerful as the original alien shields, but it could maintain protection even when half the emitters were damaged. Your civilization has taught us something profound, Valnar admitted, their crystalline patterns showing deep reflection. We thought we were protecting the galaxy by containing species until they achieved perfection. But perhaps we were preventing them from developing the very adaptability that true advancement requires. Rodriguez laughed. Perfection is overrated. Give me a system that works at 70% capacity, no matter what you throw at it, over one that needs everything to be just right. The universe is messy. Our technology should be ready for that. The Supreme Commander's next words would change the course of galactic history. The Consolidated Worlds request humanity's assistance in learning this approach. We offer not submission or dominance, but partnership. Our perfection combined with your adaptability. could create something better than either approach alone. Chen finished. We accept. Zareth felt a profound satisfaction as the agreement was formalized. The observer had spent 3 cycles studying humanity, trying to understand what made them different. The answer had been simple, yet revolutionary. Humans didn't try to master the universe through perfection. They'd mastered it by embracing imperfection and learning to thrive anyway. In the months that followed, the partnership transformed both civilizations. Consolidated world ships began incorporating human-style redundancies and adaptive systems. Human vessels gained access to advanced alien technology, which they promptly modified to work in ways the original designers had never imagined. The resulting hybrid vessels were neither perfect nor crude, but something new, adaptable, resilient, and more capable than either civilization had achieved alone. The quarantine was lifted, and humanity began to spread throughout the galaxy. But they didn't just expand. They shared their philosophy of adaptation and resilience. Other species, long held back by the consolidated world's demand for perfection, learned that progress didn't mean eliminating failure. It meant learning to turn failure into opportunity. Zareth's final report to the Council contained a simple truth that would reshape galactic civilization. The humans have taught us that the true measure of advancement is not in achieving perfection, but in learning to thrive despite imperfection. Their ships, their technology, and their very nature remind us that the universe is not perfect. And that is not a flaw to be corrected, but an opportunity to be embraced. In the space around Saturn, human and alien ships now moved together, each incorporating elements of both civilizations' philosophies. They were neither perfect nor crude, but something new. Vessels built not to achieve perfection, but to adapt to whatever the universe threw at them. And in that adaptation, they had found something greater than perfection. They had found growth.